Lacrosse community, good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. My name is Ryan Berns. I'm the president of the Lax Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse, have it in our backgrounds, to share with the youth how we became successful, how we're living our lives, because it had such huge impacts on who we are today. Our guest is no exception. He's someone who's been a major part of the Arizona lacrosse community up in Scottsdale with the Scottsdale United. Steve Debiase is the man up there, and we're so grateful to have him be a part of our conversation today to share about what's been going on up in Scottsdale, share what it means to be a leader, manager, admin side of things, as well as how we can make sure that the sport continues to grow. Steve, thank you so much for being here, and can you please share with everyone that doesn't know you how you got involved in lacrosse in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I probably have a similar story to most of the parents here in Arizona that may not have grown up in a lacrosse family. So although I grew up in New Jersey and lacrosse was all around me, I was not one of those. I was a baseball guy. I was a baseball and wrestler. So of course my kids grow up, they get involved in sports, and my older son is playing baseball, and he's a good athlete. He picks it up quickly, but bored out of his mind. And he's like, I don't want to do baseball anymore. And my wife, who also was a 4-year starter at Notre Dame softball, we're like, what? Our son doesn't want to play baseball? And so, we said that's fine. You have to pick another sport, pick something else. And he happened to be watching a lacrosse, Notre Dame lacrosse game on TV. And he's like, that looks like fun. So I was like, yeah, but it's Arizona. There's no lacrosse here. Like at your age, I'm sure, And I think about 6 months went by, and I finally, he kept on me. I'm like, okay, let me dig into this and find lacrosse. And when we found Lacrosse Force was starting up then. You had Albin, who's doing Sunday clinics or Saturday clinics at Northside. So we started to do those drop-ins, and then it kind of got rolling from there. So he dragged me into it. Long story short, he dragged me into lacrosse.
And I think, Steve, that's so powerful as well, that you have children, you think they're going to do one thing, but obviously their attention span changes, and I'm similar. I played 7 seasons of baseball in a row before I just couldn't take it anymore, and was lucky enough to find lacrosse. But you've gone and you've become involved in their lives, allowing the Scottsdale team to really flourish and grow from where it is. I think a conversation would be really interesting to see how you've seen it grown. And in that span of starting to now, do you have a pinnacle moment, whether it's on the administrative side or just seeing your sons playing? What have been some things that have really stuck out for you?
I think from a both a parent and an administrator, the interest that I've seen grow with the sport here, and I don't know if it's a pinnacle moment, but there was a time 2 seasons ago where we're like, hey, we need to start introducing this sport to younger kids. And it's not like soccer. You roll a ball out there, everybody's got 2 feet, you run and you kick the ball. It takes a little bit of skill. It could be frustrating for kids to pick it up, right? And if they don't have a little bit of grit to them, they may not stick with it for more than a week or 2, right? So, but when we kind of started offering our 8U program, I was shocked. I mean, we had in the second season, I think we had 36 kids all playing lacrosse, and then 95% of them signing up for the next season. So to me, I was like, okay, wow, we can introduce this at a younger level than we had before, and the interest is overwhelming.
Can you share a little bit more of how you introduce it at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else you do in sales. You got to do specific things, right? And one of them is you got to introduce your product to people. So really making sure we offer clinics that are 8U friendly, right? It's not a clinic for all ages, but it's let's focus on these younger kids so that they feel comfortable in that environment, that the parents feel comfortable, like they're not coming out to learn next to a 14-year-old, you know? And so we offered those very, very focused clinics. And that was one component. The other component was finding great coaches, right? So, you know, you helped us do a clinic a couple of weeks ago. And the first thing I look for is, you know, what's that person's energy on the field? If I didn't know anything about lacrosse, would I want my kid to be in that environment or not with those people? And we have great coaches, but there's a guy named Josh Longbottom, played at ASU. And man, you put him in front of families and kids, whether they like lacrosse or not, they're like, yeah, I want my kid to spend an hour or 2 hours every week with that guy, because he just has a positive energy. And so when you combine the introduction piece with a person who can really build a relationship with the kids are like, yep, I'm all in. Like, I want to come to practice and I want to leave practice. So those are really the two components that helped drive our growth at that younger age.
I think that's so interesting as well, because you talk about, I mean, you have to target who you're going to go after, and those are the young guys that ate you, and then you make sure that they have the best experience possible. If they have the best experience, they're going to get hooked. We know, because we are already in this lacrosse community, just how amazing it is. And you guys have taken a very tactical approach in terms of how to grow the community up there, which is huge. And from a leadership perspective, I think it's looking out in the future. And my favorite question to ask everyone on this little video podcast is, what does leadership mean to you, Steve?
So, you know, part of leadership is kind of, well, let me start this way. So when I kind of took over United, the guy that was running this before, Chris Boyer, and even prior to him, he got some advice and he gave it to me. And he said that, you know, for you to run this program, you have to look at it. If we have 160 kids in our program, your kid is 160 on the list, right? You can't make decisions that are there to benefit your kids. You have to look at this from a community perspective. And so that that stuck with me. So when I go out and I look at, you know, my son's 12, but I spend all my time with at this time he was 12, I spent all my time with the 8Us. It's because that is what I thought was best to help us build the program and within the community to offer the sport. So that was a big piece of it, is looking at things from a leadership perspective and not a dad or not a parent perspective. Now I've got to look at it at a higher level. And then the other part of leadership is just recognize, you know, what are the key metrics, or what are the key components of a successful program. And that is, we've got to dedicate time to clinics, and we have to make sure we involve the right types of coaches. So yes, we need coaches, but you've got to, you can't just throw anybody out there. They have to be the right type of person with the right perspective, right? I love winning as much as the next guy, but that cannot be in your top 3 things that you're accomplishing as a coach, right? And especially a youth coach. It's got to be development, right? So it's recognizing the things we have to do to build, and it's recognizing the people that we need to have involved in it. And then the last piece is knowing that, right, I'm not Scottsdale United, that I have to look for successors, not only in coaching, but I've got to look for successors for our board and for the person to take over. I have a 9-year-old. I do not want to be running Scottsdale United his entire career. I don't want to hand this off so I can go watch his games, right? Last year, just trying to get the season going, I hardly watched my kids play. And again, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make to build lacrosse here, right? To get more people involved. But yeah, those are kind of the components of leadership that I see from if you're running a youth program.
And you're in charge of so many people. If you have 160 kids, that's 160 families, which means potentially 300 to 500 people that you're really trying to juggle and up in the air. And you mentioned the coaching staff is so important, because those are the direct communication to the kids at the end of the day. And you said that winning is obviously important, but that's not what should be their number one priority. There's different values that you look for to find the right people And for any organization that is trying to build on what they have already or get to a place where Scottsdale United is, what are the two other things or three other things that they should be looking for in their coaching staff?
Well, I mentioned it before, like there's a certain energy, right? There has to be a positive energy, because, you can do all the marketing you want, right? That's a component of introducing and getting new players. But the bigger component is your coaches. So if you've got people with positive energy out there, what do you think a parent is going to go do once they've been in that environment for a few weeks? This is amazing. They're going to tell their neighbor, and they're going to tell their teammates on their flag football team or their baseball team about this and this guy that's awesome out there. So, positive energy. I mentioned perspective. You've got to have a perspective of development, right? If you're not in this to develop everybody, and let's say your kid's on that team, right? You're not there to make sure your kid gets the most playing time. You're there to develop the 25 kids, whatever the number is you have. You're there to develop them all. And so you've got to have people that are open to that, right? They may not come into it, but as long as they're open to that, like when we have our coaches meeting, like this is what I start with. Like, yes, you're a dad. That's awesome. Glad your kid's on the team. But he's the last kid on the team that I want you to be concerned with. I want you to be concerned with everybody else. So you have to have that perspective, or the experience for everybody else is going to be horrible, and they're going to last one season, maybe 2 seasons, and then they're gone, right? They're going to go to something else. So it's not hard. You just have to make sure you get the right people with the right attitude, not necessarily the person with the biggest resume or the longest resume in lacrosse. Make sense?
It makes so much sense. And I mean, it's lacrosse related. It's also business related as well. When you're in charge of a company, you need to make sure that you have the right people building your brand and emoting what values you have. And the idea of your own son comes last, to me, that's saying you come last. It's putting others first and making sure that they're taken care of. And naturally, by raising the bar for everyone else, you're going to be helped out. And it just makes an overall better experience naturally, which is, it's pretty neat to see. And that's why I really started this institute. Is lacrosse is the classroom that we're having these conversations and talking about leadership, putting the kids into difficult situations where they have to make immediate action, but it's not life and death. It's not like business where you could get fired, but everything that we're doing translates so well there. Now, Steve, you guys have a great program. It's something that is established. You have players at every single level, and it goes up from there. For some of the other programs in the Valley or wherever people are watching this right now, I know we have some international viewers as well. We know that we need to be hiring the right coaches, the people that have positive energy. They have the right perspective of putting others first. They're making it so that they are role models for those children, so that the kids are growing to be the right type of people, or just positive people moving forward. It sounds like we focus on getting the 8 U's. What else goes involved with making sure that a program is successful, and how can we bring Arizona lacrosse up from where it is right now?
Yeah. And we've had this in the last few years. A lot of programs have turned over, right? So you get a guy like me who has kids. Well, their kids get older and they go into high school. Now it's what do I do with this program? Like, right? And I fear a lot of programs don't have a well built out board that is there to oversee the program and make sure there's succession. And so what happens is that it just gets kind of turned over to the next parent who just wants it to survive for their kid for the next couple of years. So, I think we and I'm on the board of the Arizona Youth Lacrosse, like we have to do a better job of creating some specific metrics. Like if you're going to be a member of the AYL as a club, you got to have a couple of things, right? You need to have a board, right? You need to have a board that's there in case, right, you get hit by a bus. That's very, but that's also looking out for the greater good of the community that you're in. You need to do the activities that help you build and introduce lacrosse in your community, so you're getting new players. And then we need to do a better job helping them find coaches. We talked about this earlier, but helping them find coaches, because a lot of times some of these people get involved in their programs again, so it survives, but they're not involved deeply in the community, in the lacrosse community, and they end up the season's about to start, and geez, we don't have a 14U coach. That isn't a great scenario for getting kids into your program and keeping them in your program. So I think there's some things we need to do as an AYL board in managing this one season a year that we have, but in helping manage and build back into our members, right? What are those key things that you should be doing that help us know you're going to be successful when you leave, right? And you're going to have something to hand off. I'm handing this program off to you. Here are the 3 things you need to make sure you do to be successful. And it's like the dummies, right? The dummies book for running a lacrosse program. And it shouldn't be that complicated, but when you come into it new and you don't have a background, you kind of don't know where to start. And I've heard this from programs. You know, they kind of just don't know what to do other than survive with what they have.
And it sounds like, Steve, you came in because of your sons, but then Chris was able to basically say, hey, this is everything that's here. We have a board, we have this structure. You just have to plug in and play at this point. And the AYL board's essentially trying to create this for all teams. So it's plug and play. You'll give them the 3 steps that they need to make sure that they have a sustainable program. And it sounds like sustainability is the key right now. How do you have a program that's a part of a community that you can pass just from one group to the next without a hitch? Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Because as we're seeing these transitions happen, and you know, I don't know how many years we've kind of been running the AYL. Let's say it's 7 or 8 years. We're now at a point where these administrators are changing over, and a lot of these guys started their clubs. Well, now they're handing them off to people that don't have that background. They didn't know what it took to build it. They're just holding on, and they need a playbook, which again we can help with. If we had more resources at the AYL, we could easily do this. But they need a playbook to take what they have, make it successful, and maybe take some pressure off them. Because what we're seeing with these transitions that are happening is that the program's alive, but boy, I could see 2 years down the road that program no longer exists, or 3 years down the road, and that's not good for Arizona lacrosse. It's not good for that community. There's no reason why every club can't be growing like Ahwatukee is, like United is, and a couple other programs. North Valley, I think, is doing a pretty good job. Desert Ridge is doing a good job. So, but we need to help them. We need to help everybody else out with a playbook. I don't think it's that difficult. I just think you need to know those 3 things, right? You need to know 3 things and go do those 3 things, and don't worry about anything else.
The KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. And I think we can definitely make sure that it continues to grow. And I am so appreciative that you all are putting so much time in terms of how to help the communities, lacrosse teams be successful. I remember when I was playing lacrosse in the Valley, and I guess it was like 2007-ish timeframe, maybe 2005 to 2007. And there's teams out there, but now some of those teams are gone. They were powerhouses and they're no longer here. And that's unfortunate, because you'd expect a program that did very well would stay intact. But what we've seen is Ahwatukee has done great. Scottsdale's done great. Sounds like Cave Creek has a good sustainable program. And we don't want these programs to be dying out. We want them to keep strength. And the idea that the board can help the communities around do that is really meaningful to me. And I hope to say this for all of Arizona, very impactful, because we want lacrosse to grow, and it takes people to be leaders. It takes people to be able to sacrifice themselves and put others first. But ultimately, it looks like it's going to help out your family at the end of the day. So Steve, what I want to ask is, what's driving you right now, or what are you really focused on right now that's having you push forward?
You know, my focus now is probably not as much on United, because I think we've got a good formula, and it's not hard to implement those those things. I've got good coaches. I've got good people involved on my board. I've got great people involved on my board. You know, we've got the clinic side, the sales kind of side of it down. So now it's really, you know, how do I make sure the clubs around me and here in Arizona, how can I help them? And some of them are open to that. Some aren't as open, but how can we help them thrive? How can we build up some of these other programs so that we have better competition? We have more kids, right? And we raise the level of play. You know, last year I think we had more teams in the AOL I think than we had ever had. The 8U group was growing. We had, you know, the younger groups were really thriving, right? And it was great. I mean, it was looking great. Well, you know, we had a pretty large 14U group graduate last year, and when those teams get flushed out and we look at what's left on some of these other programs, you're like, whoa, okay, so how can we help them build a base of players? If you get a base of 8U players, what do they become? 10U players. You have a base of 10U players, where they become 12U. You don't have to worry later on, but if you build at those younger ages, those clubs are sustainable for years. And if they're doing those other things, right? Good coaches, great environment, a good culture, right? I mean, those things kind of help build your culture. You don't have to worry about it for 2 to 3 years. So we're kind of at a point now where other clubs I need some help. And I only say that because they've reached out and they've asked for some help. So I'm not like looking over there saying, hey, you need help, but you don't know it. Like, they need help. I mean, I was on the phone with somebody the other day. I mean, they need help. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to spend more time. What can I do? You know, maybe it's getting that playbook together, but what can I do to make sure that in 2021, our season starts in January. In 2021, it's going to be a challenge, right? No doubt about it. How do we do that? And even through that, maybe add some value to these other players and give them something where they can bounce back in 2022, right? So kind of where my head is.
I love it, Stephen. I want to be a part of this. I know our community wants to be a part of it. What can we do to help you with this vision right now?
Yeah, you know, and I've had different conversations. You know, Chris Malone and I've had some conversations. It's really building that coaching base, right? So, you know, I think back when I first got started in lacrosse, there wasn't a huge base of guys with lacrosse knowledge, but like each year now, people are moving from the East Coast. They've played professionally. They've played, you know, high level D1, D2, wherever, are here, as well as the kids that have played here, gone out and played and come back. How do we tap into them and get them excited about donating some of their time? Now, a lot of our clubs, we can pay coaches, but really, how do we get them into our community, giving back, and seeing the same, you know, having that same growth mindset for lacrosse here in Arizona? And I think now is I think we have a lot of people like that, but it's finding them, sitting down with them, right? If we need to invest in coaching clinics, like, again, I think from an AYL perspective, if we had a budget, or even combining with the high schools, if we had budget for it, is run 4 or 5 coaching clinics and get those kids coached up on how to now lead teams, right? And parents, how do we get some of these parents that have no lacrosse background, but have the quality of character that you want on the field? How do we give them a little bit of lacrosse knowledge they need to help run an 8U program or even a 10U program? So that's the biggest place where you guys can help is how do we tap into that group? How do we get in front of them? And how do we get them excited about helping out our kids?
Awesome. Well, for everyone that's watching this right now, I'm going to make sure that Steve's contact info is in the link of the YouTube page. You can reach out via Facebook, Instagram. All the tags are going to be on there for Steve or myself. And we want you to become involved. There's so many opportunities to give back, to become a better version of yourself by leading, by coaching, by just being part of this community. And that's what it takes. Steve, I love the idea of doing these coaching clinics. I've been speaking a little bit in terms of how to become certified myself, to start leading those so that we have more of us in the Valley doing that. That's something I'm committed to do. If there's anything else, let me know as well. I absolutely love this game and am so thankful for it. Steve, is there anything else that's on your mind that you want to make sure we share with everyone right now?
Well, something you just mentioned was certified, right? I've watched you on the field, and you're certified, right? You have the energy, you have the perspective, you have a lacrosse background to get on the field and lead these guys. You are the type of person that I would want in front of others to say, this is how you coach, not this is how you switch out your middies. That's not what we're talking about. This is how do you work with youth today, right? I help coach hockey. I don't have a hockey background, but I have a youth sport background. I know how to handle kids, right? I can't teach them technique, but we get those other people to help with the technique piece of it. How do we get the head coaches that are there, helping making sure this is a great experience? So I only bring that up you don't need to go out and get a certification. You've got the background for it, right? It's fine. It's tapping into those people that we need. So yeah, that's it. That's probably our biggest deficit in resources right now is good coaching that we can place around the valley and let those guys create the experience so that we continue to grow. This sport is growing nationwide, right? We're not here in Arizona. Some programs are, some are not. We are kind of flat right now. Don't see it lasting like that. But again, it's going to require people.
And we're gonna have that energy. I appreciate what you're saying about me on the field. I absolutely love this, and I'm happy to share with anyone who wants, from my perspective, in terms of how I go about coaching. And ideally, we're getting more guys that are passionate about making a difference, coming in and actually impacting all the kids. Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time today. So appreciate this conversation, all that you've been up to. It's amazing to see what the program's been doing, and I know we're going to spend a lot of time with one another moving forward. But really appreciate you coming on to the Lacrosse Leadership Institute as well and sharing your perspective with everyone.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.